Good News Planet. Hi, Kurt Davis. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. The reason I would say that we're on the same wavelength is because we want to see a betterment of the world, and we are looking to. He by far, with his outreach and his going to Africa and leaving Silicon Valley, I believe, and now creating a book, Finding Soul. Okay, from Silicon Valley to Africa, a travel memoir and personal journey through 20 countries in Africa to do good. He's a do-gooder, and we like do-gooders. Hey, Kurt, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
All right. So, well, we were talking about how we have such nutrient pills. We could send them over to Africa where they don't have enough food. But tell us about your experience in Africa, because many people have never gone to Africa or gone there in the manner that you did. Tell us about the book in your memoir.
Yeah. So the memoir sets right after Thanksgiving in 2016, right after the election. And I was at the point was in a juncture of life that I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I was a little bit fed up of the political scene in the US. And in chapter one, how my dad and I would get into quite big arguments about it. And and I like to travel, and I just been living in Japan for a few years, working with a company I worked with 7 years out of Silicon Valley, and decided, Africa was up and coming, and there's a lot of news about Africa, a lot of Bill Gates obviously was doing a lot out there, and there's new startups I kept reading about. I had some friends doing work out there, so I said, you know what? Why don't I take some time and go see, the last continent, as they say. And so while I was out there, I decided, what would I do? So I looked for some volunteer opportunities. There were some teaching entrepreneurship opportunities. There were some rising business incubators. So I went out there and I planned 2 or 3 different volunteer things, which they hosted me, gave me a place to stay, and did some teaching out there. So I taught about sales and business development. And then I also went to a high school and, worked on some technology with them, with Team for Tech. And then as I kept traveling and staying in hostels, I met other volunteer opportunities, more humanitarian. And so I did that for, almost 8 months, 9 months.
What interested you with Africa? Why Africa?
Well, I had seen, I've lived in London, seen most of Europe. I lived in Asia for nearly 9 years. So I'd seen most of Asia, if not all of it. I think one country I haven't seen in Asia. And I spent some time in South America too. So it was just the last place I hadn't been. And so there was no other reason than that. And it was also a part of the world that has different challenges than we face in other parts of the world. And I kind of wanted to see what those challenges were, and see how people lived through those challenges, and just experienced life differently than everybody else.
What is KDAlive?
So KDAlive has been work in progress for years. It's a blog, more or less, that started off as a travel blog of just where I've been and what I've been doing. And so it's been going for about 10 years in different manners. So this last kind of fix is what KDAlive is. And now KDAlive just continues to do my projects. So I still blog about my travels on there, but I also am doing a well-being project now that takes all of the learnings I've gotten from my travels around the world and put into a well-being platform. And so I'm like launching a well-being program through KDAlive, and that will actually be spin off into a different idea in very soon.
Are you an entrepreneur by birth?
I don't know if they're made, or are they born, or are they made? I would say there's probably some combination. My dad was a bit of an entrepreneur, and I helped him out with his tax businesses. So he had different tax chain doing taxes for people. And so I always saw how he enjoyed having his own business and the freedom it gave him. And so that grew on me, and I always wanted to just do my own thing.
So, but you did go to Silicon Valley, right? And work for their company store?
I worked for Silicon Valley Inc. So they call it, there's like 3 bosses in Silicon Valley and everybody else works for the 3 bosses, but people don't realize that, you know? And so, cause they've invested in all these companies, right? So I went there because I had started a company in Asia, in China, and then I had met some people in Silicon Valley around 2005 and decided if I wanted to build a company, I would do it there. But when I went there, of course, I didn't know anybody and I didn't know where to get started at the time. And so I worked at one mobile company, and that led me to work at another mobile startup called Boku for about 7 years. Yeah.
You just, when you said that just now, I've been involved with the Asian culture for 36 years. Chinese put me in business and multicultural marketing and advertising agency after my CBS, PBS, TV production years. And one of the things I learned, what you just hit me in the head with, was the Zaibatsu. And the Zaibatsu, as far as I know, what's a Zaibatsu to you? Do you know what the Zaibatsu is?
Well, it's a conglomerate, more or less.
It reminded me of when you said the three companies in Silicon Valley, because what helped to make Japan, and it's called the chaebol in Korea, was in essence 5 or 6 companies making relationships with the government and running it, like in that manner. So when you said that it just gave me a whole new perspective of Silicon Valley, that it's managed because they invest in each other, right?
Yeah, and it's just not that, but it's really the venture capitalists that control the whole place. There's a few firms who just control 20-30% of everything. So if you have to, and like it's getting a little bit more divided now, but it really isn't. Those are the firms that invested in Google and Facebook, and it's the same companies, right? So it's no different. It's no different than Japan or China or the chaebol in Korea. Like it's very similar.
There you go. All right. Well, it's of interest to those that don't understand that scenario. It's helpful, I think, a little bit. On the other hand, the soul, S-O-U-L, of which your book speaks on, well, your soul. So what have you gained from this African experience?
I would say I gained, I learned about empathy quite a bit, and I brought that back with me to really to try to really understand other people's circumstances, to take the time to put myself in their shoes and walk kind of their walk. And I know it's a bit of cliche, but really to do it and to get to know the troubles they're going through, and then to try to see where you can help accordingly. So I think empathy is something I've learned. I try, certainly when I say soul, the idea there is I say finding soul. I try to look at everybody as the soul first, right? Like, so I don't have judgments. I don't have preconceived notions. I have a beginner's mind when I see everybody. We're all the same, right? We're just a soul at the end of the day. And if you whittle it down to that, you start to look at each other in a different way, and you start to act differently. And I think that's another thing I took out of the experience. And the last thing I took out is like, we are in the West now. It's unbelievably how much that we have and we don't need, how much more we can share, how much more we can help others. Like we just have such an excess of stuff, and it really makes me cringe inside. Like, whether it's just basic things like water and energy and things like that, all the way to all the other stuff you have in your house that you don't need. If you didn't have, you could help the poor people on the other side of the east side of town, or whatever. And it just amazes me, like the material wealth that we have that is not distributed equally, or it could be an opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I think they say that America has 5 times the waste of any other country. Something like that, sometimes we talk very big, but we act very small.
Yeah.
And the best, as far as I'm concerned, the best cover of the New York Times was "Be Cheap." They put out one cover that said "Be Cheap." And as far as I looked at that, is that I don't need 46 shirts. I don't need 22 pairs of pants, 17 pairs of shoes, and so on. I'm still using my high school stuff. So I'm one of those guys, but some people would call me a pack hound. They would say I never threw anything out. And I would say, you're right, I never did. So sort of, but I've been able to do that, but it's not an easy thing, but we are where we are. So what are some of the things we want to gain from your book? What can we what can we gain from it?
Certainly the biggest thing you can gain is perspective, right? Not many people will go on that journey that I went on. Very few people, I don't know how many. I met a few doing their own journeys, but perspective. And so each country will give you a perspective, a different perspective. You can read it like a short story. You don't have to read the whole book front to end, but you can, because there's a storyboard there. So perspective. That's one thing. Community, right? The power of like community in places like Africa, and how people prioritize community and their families first before other activities, right? Not building the next billion-dollar company, right? Which is fine too, which is just in the village of Silicon Valley, that's what people prioritize, like, and that's fine too. But like they do it in lieu of helping their community. They work 8 hours weeks instead of in lieu of helping, how many, I always like to say East Palo Alto, right? If you go to Palo Alto, the richest people in the world live in Palo Alto, but they can't go across the bridge to East Palo Alto and help out, the lower income people on that side of town. Like it's really disheartening and sickening.
So give us an example in Africa, the community work, or so give us an example of one of the experiences you had that you share in the book.
Yeah. So one of my favorite things is like in Lusaka, Bongo Hive, where the entrepreneurship centers, where all the entrepreneurs basically were building companies to enhance their community. So it was to either facilitate just distribution of food, transportation, schooling system, after school support for kids. Like all the companies were focused on the community and enhancing the people around them in those manners, right? Even lifting up the ones who are really underprivileged, the more privileged people, more educated, some of them studied abroad, were building businesses, and they would repeat, this is an opportunity to employ people. This is an opportunity to give jobs and give work to the local community, and to build something together. Right. So it's a bit of a different mentality.
What would you say to somebody that wants to go to Africa, to do, to experience it, and what would you say they should do?
First of all, go. It's life-changing. It's a ton of fun. It's super interesting to learn about the cultures, the people. People are quite friendly. Always, interested in what to do. But my theme was adventure and volunteer. So there's a lot of fun. There's a lot of hiking and outdoors and nature, scuba diving and things like that. But they're also very open to inviting you into their projects. And so you can find other things to do there that suit your interest about anything, whether it's, medical, architecture, engineering, computers, teaching, just, tourism. There's lots of stuff to do there. It's really an interesting time.
All right. Anything else you want to share about the book right now with us?
Check it out. I just launched the audiobook, and it has 47 voices, I believe, of the actual characters I met. So they actually did their own voices. And there's also about 150 sound effects.
What do you mean they did their own voices? You had you recorded those people when you were there, or how did
no, that they record. So when I wrote the book, they took their parts and recorded it and sent it to me, and then we put it in the audiobook.
Oh, really? Wow, that must have been a big privilege, or a big excitement for them, right?
Yeah, sure. It was a big undertaking, but it also helped me stay in touch with them, because I'm in touch with a lot of them. And so they just, sending emails back and forth, and they had their own music studios they went to and did it. It was really a lot of fun.
Their own music studios?
Yeah.
In Africa?
there's a lot of great music in Africa,
Well, yeah.
especially West Africa, right?
Some people say music started in Africa.
No doubt.
And where can we, I mean, I have KDAlive.com. I have your book page. Where can we get this music scenario?
It's all on the audio, so Audible. So if you have Audible on Amazon, or most of the audio book companies are carrying it now, so most of your outlets you can get it.
So, but for this music, is it under Finding Soul? I mean, what is the name of the audio book?
Yes, same name. It's the same name.
Okay. All right,
same title as the book. Yeah.
Okay. Gotta make sure we get it right here. All right. Well,
no questions.
Thanks so much. Let me ask you one last question. We're involved with World Peace, International Day of Peace, and I asked lots of people, what does peace mean to them? And September 21st is the International Day of Peace. In fact, I did something in Silicon Valley in Cesar Chavez Park in San Jose. I did an event there too. So, Kurt, what's if you don't mind, what's peace for you?
Peace for me is a clarity of mind, equal emotions, and the ability to look at everyone equally and with love, right? And acceptance. That's peace.
Perfecto. My friend, thank you so much, Kurt.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay.